Hey everybody, we are back at the Health Bridge. Today we have a very special guest. Our dear friend JJ Virgin is here. Hello Sarah, hello JJ.
Hey, Sarah, are you dancing over there?
I'm totally dancing. I'm doing my JJ dance.
It's like us at the table the other night. And Pedram can be the DJ.
Oh
That's
my
right.
God, you guys, I couldn't keep a beat to save my life. So if you want to dance to that, everyone's having a bad night. You guys, we're gonna be in for a hell of a ride today because JJ Virgin is a riot. We all have such a good time with her. She is a nutritionist extraordinaire. She's been kind of kicking up dust for years now, kind of getting people to get healthy and kind of get in their bodies and feel better about food. And we're all gonna have a really good time. So JJ, welcome to the show. We're excited to hang with you.
About time you had me on, Pedram.
Oh my God, seriously.
God, what's a gal got to do to get on a podcast now?
Oh my God,
Jeez.
seriously. Well, you know, the thing is, we needed a little build up, right? Because, you know, me, I get nervous around tall girls.
Understandable. Tall girls with bigger biceps.
Well,
Throwing a gauntlet.
That's where it's going to be. This is how it's going to go.
I love this. So guys, I want to just add that JJ Virgin is a very dear friend. She is a trusted advisor. She is the leanest, smartest woman I know. And I also have to add, because, oh my gosh, you have impacted so many lives with your phenomenal New York Times bestseller. Well, you have two. You have two bestsellers, The Virgin Diet and The Virgin Diet Cookbook. And we're talking today about the foods that take you down, the JJ blacklist.
And you're going to limit me, I hear. Like I can talk about 5. I go, only 5? But
Only
you know,
5.
it's important if we're going to talk about foods that take you down, I want to make sure we also give people options there, because I know whenever you take something away, you know, first of all, if you try to take something away from me, and I know you're the same, Miss Sarah.
Oh, yes.
You know, it's like the minute I get naughty and mischievous and I want it more. So you always got to give people a swap that they're going to like better, right? Otherwise, it's just mean.
It's totally true. And JJ, you and I have this ongoing conversation about it's not about deprivation. It's really about having a very sensual life, including your
Right.
food.
Clearly, you and I are not about deprivation.
Oh, no.
Yeah, these girls like to have fun. And guys, no sucks. I mean, it's really hard to constantly say no to things until you have a weak moment and then you kind of collapse around it and start making bad decisions. And so, I mean, if we could find yummy foods to say yes to, how much better is that? I mean, how much nicer does life get?
Well, and I will share with you that Sarah and I, like, we do spend a lot of time together. Not enough, but we do. And we have a blast and we go out and do fun things. And we've never gone and eaten garbage food while doing so.
It's true.
And if you felt deprived remotely.
As long as I let you do the ordering, JJ,
Yes,
we just,
I'm
you know,
in charge.
we've established that, you know, hierarchy.
I'm a food dominatrix.
So lay it on us, JJ. Start to dominate us.
Okay, you know, I'm going to first pick on one because, so I think that when you really talk about the foods that are taking us down, what we should address is the fact that a lot of these foods have a health halo around them, which makes it even worse, right? Because you're sitting here thinking you're doing something so great, and in reality, you're trying so hard, but you're following the wrong set of rules and you're being misled by the information out there. So I'm going to pick on what I think is the worst of these health halo foods. And that is, can you guess what I'm going to say? It's agave.
Oh, yes.
Agave makes me crazy. So we're going to throw in there, of course, high fructose corn syrup. But, you know, all sugar is bad. And my book coming out in November is Sugar Impact Diet. And I'm going to give you a new way to look at sugar in terms of the impact it has on your body. And Sarah has been working with me reviewing the book. But all sugar is bad, but fructose has its own little special big badness, because when you eat sugar, there's always going to be some fructose in there. With agave, it's the highest source of fructose other than straight fructose. And what happens when you do this is it goes straight to the liver, like beelines on down there, which might sound like it's good because it's not raising blood sugar. And that's why we've seen this thing where it's low on the glycemic index. It doesn't raise blood sugar. But in reality, you've got a feedback mechanism that happens when you raise blood sugar, where you raise blood sugar and therefore raise insulin and therefore trigger leptin, trigger ghrelin, all these things that need to happen so your body goes, oh, hey, I ate, I'm not hungry anymore. So it doesn't do that. Instead, it goes straight to the liver. And ideally, there's a little suitcase in the liver where you can store this as glycogen, but it's very small. So once that's full, which is pretty darn quick, it's going to go in there and it's going to start making fat. So I want you just to think about this. You've just eaten this thing that you heard was healthy, agave, and it goes into your body. You eat it thinking, oh, I'm doing a great thing. But all of a sudden, you're getting fatter while you're still hungry.
Bad deal.
I mean, yikes, that's a bad deal, right? So that gets my number one, this is a bad deal. And it kind of goes over this whole thing of you've got to be careful when you walk into health food stores. Because, gluten-free products and natural sweeteners, hey, all sweeteners are natural unless they're not. And so my next one would be to call out the artificial sweeteners, because those are the most heinous thing. You are better off having agave than an artificial sweetener. That's how bad the artificial sweeteners are. And let's just agree that they're a science experiment that went really bad, because, why do we have artificial sweeteners, right? I mean, what were they there for? They were there so we could basically have our cake, eat it too. And especially they were there for diabetics. Now we know that actually that artificial sweeteners can make diabetics worse. They can raise blood sugar. They can raise insulin. One of the really creepy things they do is they feed the bad bacteria in your gut. I think one of the most exciting conversations going is that of the microbiome, the bacteria in our gut. We're more bacteria than cells. And that bacteria really dictates whether you gain weight or lose it. Because if you have too much bad gut bacteria, which Splenda feeds, you actually extract more calories from the food you eat and store it as fat. Now, we also know that artificial sweeteners are 300 times sweeter than regular sweeteners. And what happens when you eat sweet?
You crave more sweet.
You want more sweet.
Yes.
You eat sweet, you want more sweet, and you really desensitize your taste receptors. So you keep needing progressively sweeter things. This is why it makes me insane that we have like infant formulas with sugar in them, and we have all these artificially sweetened kids products or kids products with fruit juice concentrates in them where they say no added sugar, because we're training our kids to be addicts. Let's call it what it is. Sugar is a drug from a young age. This is not okay.
This is such a good point, JJ. I just started reading Michael Moss's book, Salt, Sugar, Fat, and he talks about how one of the big food manufacturers created Go-Gurt for children, and how these yogurts, which have the health halo, actually have like double the sugar that our old-fashioned plain yogurt used to have, the kind that my grandmother ate. So I think this is such an important point.
And you know what the deal is with that makes me really crazy is you can lie with labels, as we know. So you can say no added sugar and put fruit juice concentrate in, which is worse because, again, we call it fructose because it's the primary place you're going to get fructose is from fruit. Now, hey, when you're getting it in fruit, you're getting fiber, you're getting plant nutrients, you're getting both glucose and fructose. But when you're pulling out that fruit juice concentrate, getting rid of the fiber, getting rid of the phytonutrients, concentrating it way down, and then putting it into a yogurt to make it basically yogurt crack for kids, right? And then the kids will never go back to eating real yogurt because it's not going to taste sweet.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So and that's when they say I don't like vegetables. That's why they'll never eat the good stuff on the table because they're addicted. I'm
surprised we haven't made broccoli candy yet. I'm surprised we haven't started to do those things. It's like that's coming next. But you look at it and you go, okay, exposure equals preference. And so you have at a young age an opportunity to get kids to eat broccoli, to have salad, to think of carrots as sweet. And all of a sudden you're giving them something with fruit juice concentrate or artificial sweeteners, and you're totally disrupting their sweet sensitivity.
Mm-hmm.
Very bad.
So, okay, you've just taken away agave, and I go down to the and artificial sweeteners. I go down to the smoothie store, and everyone's got wellness written on their window somewhere now. Wellness is such a silly buzzword because the other day I drove by a nail salon that said they did wellness, and so I actually walked in there and said, "What are you guys doing here for wellness?" And they just looked at me funny, and I said, "Right, buzzword, thank you." And so what now? Like, what can we take? I mean, what is it like? How do we transition and get off the crack? Because so many people in this country are hooked on sugar in a really, really dangerous way, and taking it away is like almost taking away their opium.
Well, it is exactly taking away. Sugar, dairy, and gluten, if I were going to pick my three things, are all drugs. And I think where people make the big mistake with sugar is they just go, okay, and I just read another one. It was supposed to be some revolutionary new program to quit sugar. And it's like, okay, pull it all out. I'm like, that's not how this will work. Because if you've gotten your body used to being a sugar burner, running on sugar, and you take it all out, the next day you will crash and burn. They don't do this to drug addicts. They take them through a rehab program and they give them things in its place, right? I mean, so you can't do that to someone. So what you have to do instead is you must taper them. And this is where nice little shifts or trades get in place so that, let's say someone's used to eating a lot of higher sugar impact foods. Well, let's transition them first to maybe, eating a sweet potato, eating an orange, and then we can transition them down from there. But you can't just cut it out, because if you cut it out, they're not going to be able to white knuckle their way through this. It's just too hard. And you know what? I think that one of the things we have to really look at is if something's too hard, there's something wrong. When you really start to eat well and experience great health, you realize that actually, in reality, it's effortless. I think we've been sold a bill of goods that this is so hard, that it's difficult, that it costs a lot, that it takes a lot of time. And when you really look at making healthier choices, it didn't take any more time. You just shifted what you were eating. Instead of having pasta, you picked Andean Dream quinoa pasta. I say that one because it's the only quinoa pasta without corn, which makes me nuts. Instead of having, say, skim milk, you had coconut milk. So you made just simple swaps in there. That didn't take any more time. And by the way, the biggest urban legend out there that makes me nuts is this idea that it costs more to eat healthy. In reality, I went to the grocery store and I did 1 week's worth of what a person would reasonably choose as healthy with a couple little extra treats in there. And then what they would choose if they were following the Virgin diet or a healthier diet. And you know what? It was $38 less to follow the healthier diet. And I wasn't even trying. I wasn't like going, I'll go pick the most expensive on this side and the cheap. No, we just went through. I went through and did this with Camper. This was like a fun Saturday night because we're geeks. And we did this. And I told them, like, all I want to prove is that it doesn't cost any more. I wasn't out there to say we're going to save money. I just wanted to show that it didn't cost more money. But in reality, it saved money. And that's looking in the short term. The long term is, how much does not being healthy really cost you financially or emotionally, right? What is it taking away from you? Because I think so often we look at something and go, oh yeah, I want to eat healthier, or yeah, I want to lose weight. And we never get started because we don't connect that to what we're missing out on by not being there. And I think that if we really knew, because, for so many of us, we think that it's normal to have gas and bloating and joint pain and headaches and fatigue. We think it's normal to carry around extra weight. We're taught that if you go, turn on the TV and see all the advertisements for all the products. And, we don't look at, hey, this could change in a matter of days. And by changing it, what is that going to give us? And if you really attach the emotion of, what you'll get to do, like you being a new daddy, Pedram, what that will mean to you as a father, as a role model, as having more time, as being able to really be present, or what it will be. Because I don't believe we were put on this earth to watch TV and, play video games. I think we all have greatness within us that we're supposed to do, but so many of us give up because we're just too freaking tired to do it, right? And just these simple shifts can kind of give you that hope back to, wow, I can do so much more. And so for a lot of it, I think if people knew how easy it was, and that in reality, when you get into the flow and you start to shift, it really becomes effortless, that if something's hard, it's a struggle, you're having to count things, you're having to buy these like weird meals, that this isn't what health's about. We're given the wrong information out there. When you ask me about like these 5 foods taking our health down, the funniest part of it is they're really foods that are being touted as healthy: skim milk and whole grain bread, and popcorn and artificial sweeteners and agave and soy milk, things that people are reaching for because I'm trying to be healthier, right? And they're going, but why do I feel so crappy? And, I can see why people give up. I got on a bit of a rant.
Well,
I'm sorry.
It's such a good point. You know, JJ, one of the things I love about your message is this idea that there's such a cost to eating the wrong foods, and that it's simpler than you think. And in fact, it's cheaper. You did a study with Camper, one of your dearest friends and business partners. So how about some of these other foods that take us down? I want to make sure that we get through our full list. And I want to come back to that little suitcase in the liver. We'll come back to it maybe a little later, because I have a few ideas there. I love it when you make the biochemistry come alive.
Thank you. One of my nutrition mentors, I'll never forget, he's like, serotonin and dopamine walked into a party. And I go, that's it. That's what we have to teach these things. We'll remember, right?
Yes, totally.
And so, you know, we are taught, I look at these buzzwords like whole grain goodness. And you look at a little package and it's got these pretty little grains and it's green and well is somewhere in there, isn't it, Pedram? And healthy and all these words that are meaningless.
Don't forget the picture of the barn. You know, it's got to look like it comes from nature.
I'll never forget, a little digression. My poor little doggy, who I love more than, well, I don't love more than my kids, but right up there with my kids, second, third. Almost died because we bought this little package of chicken treats with the farmer on the front and, you know, the whole USA thing. Well, it turns out they were made in China and toxic. But, you know, it had the farmer on the front. I'm like, but the farmer was on the front. You know, it had pictures of real people in the farm. So it's so easy to mislead us. But you look at gluten and, you know, the fact that what we're getting here is so different in terms of how it's been genetically engineered, that we have this super starchy, super sticky, super addictive food, a drug just like sugar, you know, something that's going to raise your blood sugar more than anything else, and something that's going to damage your gut so that you become intolerant to more foods, not just the gluten in it. And then you're addicted to it so you can't put it down. And this is being touted as this thing that we should be having. What's the latest recommendation? 6 to 11 servings of a day? I look at the My Plate and it's like, you have to have this much dairy a day and this much gluten. And I'm like, yikes, you know. So there's another one that just makes me nuts, because people believe, I've gotten kind of some Twitter hate from people saying, you know, what you are doing is dangerous, telling people to pull gluten out of their diet. They're going to become deficient. I'm like,
in what?
Exactly. I was like, what is it? Just give me one thing that they can't get somewhere else better that they'll be deficient in. Name one, because there isn't one, you know? I'm like, so that's a biggie. Obviously dairy, and it's funny because you look at dairy and milk does a body good, right? You know,
that was several $100 million, if not billions of dollars in the making to get that stuck in all of our heads.
I know.
Right? Just add dollars.
Amazing. Milk does a body good, and you've got all of these people who we respect and admire, not authorities, wearing mustaches. And I'm like, why are we caring about whether they drink milk or not? This is one I'll never understand. Why, an actress drinking milk should have any impact on my dietary decisions. You know, just because someone eats, they are not a nutritionist or a nutrition expert, right? So you look at dairy, and you look at, one of my nutrition mentors used to call these the studies that get ignored. So, you know, you look at Walter Willett, who showed that the children who drank the most skim milk as opposed to less milk or full fat milk actually were heavier, had more weight problems, more obesity. Then you look at the Nurses' Health Study, 77,000 nurses, and the nurses who drank the most milk had the most acne as teenagers and had the most osteoporosis. So you look at why we're taught to drink milk. The number one thing people say is, oh, but you need it for strong bones. But then you look back at that study and you go, why is this not getting out? You know, it's so crazy. And especially we're told to drink skim milk to get rid of the fat, which is even worse because it just kicks up the sugar in milk. So that's one that makes me nuts, you know, the skinny lattes.
This is the kind of stuff that makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up, because it's almost as if there's an overt, orchestrated effort to keep people dumbed down and unhealthy and stupid in a lot of ways. And it's just, it's egregious, right? And the fact that people aren't screaming bloody murder, more than there's 8 of us in the corner jumping up and down doing it for the last 20 years, and now it's starting to kind of come out here. But the fact that people aren't screaming bloody murder is a testament to how well it works in dumbing people down.
Right. And if you do scream on it, then you get listed as on Quack Watch or one of these other places, and which I think should be considered a badge of honor. But, there's some big financial considerations. When I get this information out, it's one of the reasons I love PBS, big shout out PBS, because you can say this information there and you have the time to say so. When you do stuff on national TV, you have to be careful how you position it because of the advertising dollars. And so you want to make sure you can still get the information out, but you have to do it very carefully. Because, the Dairy Council doesn't like this information. The Egg Council doesn't like the information, So, that's a big challenge here. But I'll tell you, the Internet's the great equalizer. It can be scary and fabulous all at the same time because you always have to look back to where the information is. But it is allowing us at least to get this information out, especially fabulous podcasts like yours. My friends.
Well, I think it's so important to realize that the evidence is where we want to rest our case because, you described Walter Willett, and for our listeners, if you just Google Walter Willett, Willet, he's the head of nutrition at the Harvard School of Public Health. If you Google Walter Willett osteoporosis, you'll find all of these commentaries that JJ is talking about, where he says, this idea that milk prevents osteoporosis is totally unproven. So I think it's crucial that we look at the evidence. And I love how you bring it in, JJ, as you go through your blacklist.
Yeah, and the science has to be there. I was just telling you guys before we started that they wrote a piece in the Wall Street Journal today about food intolerance. I got quoted, yay. But they said, there's really no science to support this. I'm like, yes, there is science to support this. These have been, this has been being used for years. Because one of the things that happen with the virgin diet is they go, it's a fad. I'm like, it's a food intolerance diet. What, 20, 30, how many years have they been using this in medical offices, right?
50 years, I think.
It's a fad. Like, it's not a fad, and there's a lot of science behind this. And it's there, and I teach this at medical conferences, and you better believe as a non-MD standing in a medical conference, I better have the backup. Otherwise, I'm going to get like a little lamb walking in there to slaughter. So the information is there, and that's the good news. But again, these are the studies we like to ignore. And you can have a great ad slogan like milk does a body good or whole grain goodness, and boom, right? You've got it. So you just grab a couple celebrities, slap a mustache on them, and there we go.
Let's make some money.
Yeah, man.
All right. So what's the next one? We've covered agave. We've covered the artificial sweeteners, gluten and dairy. I've
got a shout out on soy. There is no joy in soy.
Oh, number 5.
Nice.
Now, I'm going to say that with a caveat. So we know soy came into the food supply a couple thousand years ago because Asian farmers figured out they were using it to put nitrogen back in the soil, and they figured out that if they heavily fermented it, that they could reduce the phytates and lectins and eat it. So edamame is not heavily fermented. Soy milk, soy cheese, soy ice cream, all these things that we're putting soy into, not heavily fermented. They're actually heavily processed. I always think it's so funny. I go to this event called Expo West every year. It's the biggest natural foods expo. I know I was there with you, Pedram, and Sara, you're getting there this next year. Mm-hmm. And what's so interesting is it's the Natural Foods Expo, and most of the stuff is so far from natural that I just look at it and I'm like, I just don't understand, because to take a soybean and turn it into soy ice cream was no easy feat. This didn't just happen. So let's look at the issues of soy. And I'm saying all this saying, hey, you know what? If you got organic soy, if you could somehow find non-GMO soy out there, because 99% plus of it now apparently is GMO, because even if you don't want to have GMO, the wind is blowing the seeds into the non-GMO areas. So if you could find it non-GMO and heavily ferment it, maybe have a little bit of it here and there once or twice a week, but even then, the studies are showing that it could lead to dementia and Alzheimer's. They did this study of Japanese men living in Hawaii, and that's what they started to find. And that was 3 times a week. And unfortunately, what happens when we hear something is good for us? I had a gal who'd heard that soy was good for her, and she should eat a plant-based diet. So she became a vegetarian. She ate soy, soy milk, soy cheese. Have you tried soy cheese? This is one foul food. Yeah, so soy milk, soy cheese, soy ice cream,
soy burgers,
soy, and they put it into pasta to lower the carb count, and blah, blah, blah. So she was doing all that. When I met her, she was 100 pounds plus overweight. She's lost 120 pounds now. And what's cool is she actually didn't cut her calories. We just changed them. So while calories do count, you can't go eat a jar of almond butter, which is why I can't have my crack in the house. Where the calories come from count so much more. And for her, it was taking the soy out that was lowering her thyroid function, that was raising her estrogen. Soy is an endocrine disruptor. It's got goitrogens. It can lower thyroid, which is she was severely hypothyroid and very estrogenic. Of course, she also had more and more body fat, so now she had more and more bad estrogen. So just it created this horrible situation. It took a while to dig her out of, right? Because she'd created a hormonal disaster for herself, which I know if you've all read The Hormone Cure, so you get that. But, now what's cool is, again, I said this shouldn't be so hard. We pulled the soy out. She started adding in pastured pork and chicken and wild salmon and grass-fed beef. And she just started to lose weight and more. She's lost 120 pounds. What's cool is, again, I always said attach the weight loss to what's different in your life. So, she had been in an icky relationship. She had a job she hated. She now has her own business, a great guy, a cool apartment in New York City. Her whole life is different. She went from hiding out. When she was listening to me talk, she was sitting in the back row of a lecture crying, and now she's like living in the front row of her life.
Oh, and I love that.
That's the difference, right? So, and it was that damn soy. So that's the challenge I see is we take something where soy is good. Well, first of all, look at the research. I mean, no one's done better research than Kayla Daniels on the whole soy story, but look at the research out there on soy is good. Where is the soy is good coming from? Where is that coming from? Because, when we've learned with genetic modification, soy, corn being the big one, sugar beets, this means that we can now spray crops like with abandon because it's not going to kill that food, but that food will soak it up.
Right.
And if those pesticides are going into that food, is that magically dissipating by the time it comes to you? Or are you eating it? Because you can't scrub it off. It's in there. So now you're eating it, and where do those toxins go? Do we really have detoxification systems that were set up to deal with Roundup? So our body goes, store this away, protect us. And it puts it into your fat. And when it puts it into your fat, your body goes, we need to keep it there. So you cool down, you hold on to your fat, and you become weight loss resistant due to the toxins. And then as you do start to finally be able to lose the weight, you have to be really vigilant so that you don't toxify yourself in the process, right? So there's the scary on soy, and then I brought up GMOs, and so I'm going to just throw one extra one in. I'm sneaking it in, Pedram. I'm
bonus.
Sorry. It's a bonus one. Well, because it makes me so nuts to see things like Skinny Pop, right? Skinny Pop, because people go, oh, popcorn is a diet food. First of all, does anyone ever eat 1 cup of popcorn ever? Ever. I mean, I will true confessions. So I get the organic popcorn, and then I popped it in coconut oil. Now, first of all, we feed cows and pigs corn to fatten them up. It's sugar. You start eating it, the starch turns to sugar. Popcorn is sugar. If you looked at it as sugar cubes, you probably wouldn't be eating it. But so I make this popcorn in coconut oil with sea salt, thinking I can hang with this. I eat this entire thing of it. It's probably 20 cups. And then I start to make another one because God knows you're not going to be full eating popcorn. You're going to get hungrier, right? Because this is fructose and glucose. And when you put the two together, it's even worse. So I had to actually take the corn kernels and dump them into the trash can and put coffee grinds on top of it so that I would not pull a piggy. But, besides it being a trigger food, it's straight sugar and it's pro-inflammatory. And most of the corn, of course, genetically modified corn won't pop. So, but most of the corn out there is genetically modified. So I'm just sneaking that one in as we feed cows and pigs corn to fatten them up. So don't be thinking you're eating Skinny Pop and getting thinner. It ain't happening.
Love it. One of the things I think that we would be remiss not talking about is when we're talking about pastured animals, grass-fed beef, all this kind of stuff. The reason why it's so important is all these yucky foods that have been genetically modified and just weren't designed to be consumed by humans are what these animals, the conventional animals, are eating. That's in their feed. So the problem is, you could say, well, I eat all, healthy food, but, once in a while I'll have conventional beef. But what happened is that cow spent its entire life concentrating all of that garbage from the conventional feed into its tissue. And now you're getting a mega dose of that kind of stuff because you weren't thinking about what the cow was fed. And that to me is just, it's one of those things that you got to open your eyes to, because all these foods that JJ is talking about are so gross for our bodies, but we're mammals just like those cows, and if the cow's having a hard time with it and we eat the cow, then it's the same business.
It's what I like to say is you are what you eat, ate. And when you look at it, so you are what you eat, ate, and we know that whether it's a cow or a chicken, whatever, they've got antibiotics, they've got hormones that they're injecting into them. And then they're feeding them food that, they're feeding fish soy. This is weird. So they're feeding them non-indigenous foods. With cows, they're feeding them corn that's making them now acidic. So now they've got to give them all sorts of antibiotics to calm down all the pussiness. I mean, just think of pussy milk, and it's like, yikes, yucky. So, you look at it, but there's one other issue there, too, that never gets talked about, and it's the issue of Xeno Hormesis. I just wanted to really show off with that word.
That's a big word.
All right. But it is that you've got these stressed out animals, and not only are you getting the injected hormones, but you're also getting the stress hormones because you've stressed these animals out, and now you're getting that, too. And then you're heating them at a high temperature and you're glycating the protein. So you're eating stress hormones, added bad hormones like estrogens, and you're getting antibiotics, and you're getting all the glycated proteins because you just, sizzled it on the grill, and all of the polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons that came up as the juice dripped down and the fat dripped down and went poof back up from the charcoal. And then you're getting all of their GMO pesticides and all that crap, that's going in there too. So yeah, it's just a cocktail of bad, as you said, gross.
No wonder people feel so horrible.
Yeah, no wonder. And so people will go, okay, well, I don't know if I can afford it. It's like, really, well, you can't afford not to. But what's cool is when you start to look at this, it's getting easier and easier to find grass-fed. And what we have to talk about is it's not grass-fed, it's actually grass-finished, because a lot of times they'll grass-feed cows and then they'll go finish them off on the crap, so they'll get fat at the end. So it's grass-fed, grass-finished. It's pastured pork and chicken being the hardest to find, and then wild fish. I'm actually meeting with a guy next week, and I'm working on creating a farm-to-table type of marketplace to make this easy for people to get everywhere, because it's challenging right now. And even some of the places I have been getting it, they're running out of it. So I'm actually getting together with a consortium of ranchers to work on this issue, especially the chicken. I find the chicken's the hardest of all.
Another crucial point, here in California, we've had a drought, and so it's been much harder to get grass-fed, grass-finished beef. I know that that's a major issue. And I also wanted to say, JJ, that there's some newer data showing that when you eat soy, just as you described with your case, that it reduces your free T3, your most important thyroid hormone, by 7% with a single serving. So a single serving, 7%.
Single serving.
Oh my gosh. So I just wanted to enunciate that point. So can we go back to the little suitcase?
Look at you, sexy, naughty librarian.
There she is.
So the little suitcase in the liver that stores glycogen, you were talking about the sugar burner and how fructose goes straight to the liver, and we've got this glycogen storage process. I was thinking, as you said that I have like a little carry-on bag for glycogen in my liver, and I think you've got like a really massive suitcase because you do burst training and you eat so well. Can you speak to that? Like, are there different sizes of the suitcase?
Well, here's the best. The best suitcases we carry are in our muscles. And that can make the biggest difference of all. First of all, the fastest way to restore insulin sensitivity, which will help you then become a fat burner, is to build muscle, because muscle then requires more glycogen, so you can suck that sugar into your working muscles. But also, both resistance training and burst training, hard exercise, not this wimpy long endurance training that makes you old, fat, and you know how I feel about it, and hungry. But this burst style training actually burns up your fat storing enzymes as well. So what happens when you do hard, intense exercise is you're going to use up the glycogen fast so that you've got places to put the carbohydrates when you eat them. And you're going to use up your fat storing enzymes. So what I want people to think about is we tend to think of exercise all wrong. We tend to think of how much fat are we burning during exercise. I remember back when I started out in graduate school, it was all about getting into your fat burning zone. And I still see people doing that using these heart rate monitors. I go, the only reason to use a heart rate monitor is to see how fast you recover from a big, intense burst. Because that's the true marker of fitness. You don't want to stay in your fat burning zone. Because you know when you're in your fat burning zone? When you're sitting on your butt. That's when you should be in your fat burning zone. And when you're doing your exercise, you should be trying to burn out as much sugar as humanly possible, as quickly as possible. If you can go to the gym and last for an hour, you were sloughing off, okay? Because you should go all out and recover, all out and recover. And an exercise session should be anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes, and you are done. Now, we went to the gym the other day, and we were kind of hanging out some and yakking, but you know, the hard stuff, I mean, you should come out of there and you should feel a little wobbly. That's how you should feel. You shouldn't walk out of there and feel like, you know, you should be able to go run a marathon. And don't run a marathon anyway, because endurance training makes you better at storing fat. It burns up your muscle. It ages you faster. It raises stress hormones. It lowers your immune system, and it makes you hungrier. Do you really want all of that to happen? Plus, who the heck has that kind of time? Short, intense burst training where you go all out for 30 to 60 seconds, you run. And by the way, this is great because no matter what fitness level you're at, total couch potato to total elite athlete, you can do this. You know, for you, burst training might be literally getting up and down out of the chair 10 times. Could be a burst. And that's fine because it'll change dramatically very quickly. But it could be cycling, it could be step-ups, it could be swimming, it could be dancing. It doesn't matter. It's something that you can do all out for 30 to 60 seconds, not longer. Don't pace yourself. Try to burn out fast. And then actively recover for twice as long doing something easy so you reuse your lactic acid, you get rid of it, you buffer it down, and do it again to accumulate 4 to 8 total minutes of bursting. This is amazing. We all need to do this 3 times a week. By the way, that's 12 to 15 minutes. And if you don't have 12 to 15 minutes, you've got a bigger problem here. And I bet you do because people waste so much time. I mean, so get off Facebook and get bursting. Then resistance style training. That's going to help build those muscles so you have more room to put that glycogen in, those stored carbohydrates. And this is simple stuff too, because, you know, you can build muscle. Building muscle is really about eating the right fuel, getting enough sleep, and then doing big, intense movements. No little bicep curls or tricep extensions, squats and step-ups and push-ups and bent over rows and pull-ups, doing a couple big things a couple times a week. So it doesn't take long either.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I've been in the gym with you many times, and I can tell you it is an absolute delight to work out with you. Absolute delight. So I want to just recap here your blacklist. So these are the foods you got to stay away from. Number 1, agave. Number 2, artificial sweeteners. Number 3, gluten. Number 4, dairy. Number 5, there's no joy in soy. Bonus is that you got to stay away from the corn, stay away from that popcorn. It's not what you think. JJ, people want to hear more about you. They want to follow you. They want to figure out how to get on your love bus. So
and they want to see our wine video.
Oh, probably. Yes, and they want to see that too, In Defense of Wine. So yes. How do they do it? How can they learn more about you?
I think the easiest place right now is to go to virgindietcookbook.com. We have what I'm all about is giving you as much information as possible so that you see how easy this is to do. So there I have training videos, I have recipes, all sorts of easy, fun stuff where you can jump right in. And I have to mention one other thing because we brought up fitness. If you go to jjsfitclub.com, I actually have 15-minute workouts for free. So if you were trying to think of some excuse as to why you couldn't do this, that's gone. It's there.
Ooh.
Do it.
Love it. You guys, JJ Virgin, she's a legend. You know why we love her. Find her, check out what she's doing. She's always doing something awesome. She's hard to keep up with, but it's probably because she does a lot of burst training. She's got a lot of energy. JJ, I want to thank you so much for being on the show. Would love to invite you back whenever we can all get in the same room. We have a lot of fun, but this type of virtual thing allows us to be able to at least hang out in this way and kind of share the JJ love with our tribe. So thanks so much for being here. And again, you guys find JJ out there, and she's a trendsetter. So she's been throwing this gauntlet for a while, and now people are listening because she was avant-garde, and she remains that way. So listen to our gal.
Yay!
Thank you.
Thank you, JJ.
Thank you, honey.